I hope everyone's connected now. Welcome to the press conference following the VTC on COVID coordination and health. Welcome to the President of the European Council and to the President of the European Commission. I first want to point out that we've just released today's statement on COVID coordination, so please check our website on behalf of the 27 member states. And I first turn to the President of the Council. Please.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Today we focused on 5 critical areas in our fight against COVID-19. Vaccinations, new variants, travel restrictions, vaccine certificates and international solidarity. We also discussed the lessons learned from this crisis to strengthen our health systems and improve our European coordination. Our top priority now is speeding up the production and delivery of vaccines and vaccinations across the European Union. And that's why we support the Commission's efforts to work with industry to identify bottlenecks, guarantee supply chains and scale up production. And we want more predictability and transparency to ensure that pharmaceutical companies comply with their commitments. The second topic is the new variants. We face new mutants, new variants, so we need to adapt our strategy. We must continue to identify mutations as early as possible, and that's why enhancing our sequencing capacity is key to these efforts. And we need to continue to invest in vaccine research to update our vaccines. The third point, travel restrictions. When it comes to travel, we need to respect the common approach we agreed. Non-essential travel may still need to be restricted, but measures should be proportionate. And we must ensure the flow of goods and services in the single market by making use of the green lanes. I trust the Commission to make sure that these principles are respected. We also discussed vaccination certificates, and we agree to continue our work on a common approach. Of course, more work needs to be done on digitalization and on cooperation with the World Health Organization. But we felt tonight more and more convergence among us about this important topic, and the European Council will revert to this matter. Solidarity. This pandemic is global, and we won't be safe until everyone is safe. So we reaffirmed our solidarity with third countries through COVAX and the sharing of vaccines with our neighbourhood and beyond. For instance, just yesterday, 600,000 doses of COVAX vaccines were sent to Ghana, the first to be shipped and delivered. With more than €2.2 billion already donated by the European Union and Member States, we are a leading contributor to COVAX. And we agreed to continue working on a way to share vaccines, and especially health workers should be among the first protected. Our help should go all those in need, including in Africa, Western Balkans, Eastern Partnerships, Latin America. We also started discussions on the lessons learned from this crisis and how to make our health systems stronger and more resilient for the future. Multilateral cooperation is key, not only to tackling COVID-19, but all future health threats. We are committed to improving global health security through a strengthened World Health Organization, and I proposed an international treaty on pandemics, and we are getting more and more support for this idea, not only in Europe, but also outside of Europe. Je voudrais adresser maintenant quelques commentaires sur la situation dans laquelle nous nous trouvons sur le terrain de la lutte contre le Covid-19. Et je pense qu'il faut tenir un langage de vérité. La situation actuelle est en effet difficile. Il y a une pression très forte dans l'ensemble de nos États membres. Il y a une attente très grande de l'ensemble de nos citoyens pour pouvoir retrouver une capacité de vivre dans une société ouverte avec davantage d'interactions et avec un impact sur le plan économique et social. Et nous le savons, les prochaines semaines vont demeurer difficiles sur le terrain de la vaccination. Mais dans le même temps, je veux aussi donner un message d'espoir et un message d'optimisme parce que, nous l'avons bien vu aujourd'hui dans le débat, nous avons les moyens, nous avons les ressources, nous avons les capacités pour réussir dans les prochains mois à faire en sorte que l'Union européenne joue un rôle clé, pas seulement pour l'Europe, mais aussi sur le plan international, pour garantir que l'on puisse sortir de cette crise dans laquelle nous situons depuis maintenant plus d'1 an. Et effectivement, nous sommes 1 an après la première vidéoconférence qui a été convoquée pour appréhender cette crise dans laquelle nous sommes entrés il y a 1 an. Depuis 1 an, nous avons connu des succès, nous avons connu aussi des difficultés, nous avons connu aussi des moments plus difficiles, mais il est certain qu'1 an plus tard, nous avons une plus grande connaissance de ce virus, des variants, des mutants. 1 an plus tard, nous avons démarré sur le plan mondial à produire des vaccins et avec un volume de production extrêmement important sur le plan européen qui doit s'accroître tout au long des prochains mois. Et c'est donc ce message à la fois de vérité, mais aussi ce message d'espoir que je veux adresser aujourd'hui. Finally, one word on Russia. We will have a strategic debate in March on our relationship with Russia. And I would like to repeat again, we condemn the treatment of Alexei Navalny and we demand his immediate release. On Monday, foreign ministers reached a political agreement to impose restrictive measures against those responsible for his arrest and sentencing. And the decision will be formalized next week in the framework of the new European Global Human Rights Sanctions regime. We also strongly condemn the attack on a delegation travelling on a World Food Programme field visit in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and to express our deepest sympathy to Italy and our condolences to the families of the victims. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Madam President, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you so much. Let me add a few comments. We started the Leaders VTC with a brief look at the epidemiological situation. We observe stable and decreasing trends in 20 countries, but increasing trends in about 7 others. At the same time, indeed, there's a growing COVID fatigue among our citizens. It has been a very trying year, but we should not let up now. Not only does the situation remain serious in many parts of Europe, but we must also watch out for the variants that are spreading. The B.1.1.7 is by now in all member states but 1. The South African variant is in 14 member states and the Brazilian variant in 7. So there's a lot of challenge ahead of us. The first task is, of course, to achieve widespread vaccination. We should maintain our utmost efforts so the pace of the vaccination picks up. I shared numbers with the leaders. By Sunday, so the end of this week, more than 50 million doses of vaccines will have been delivered to the European Union. More than 29 million doses have been administered as of today. That's approximately 6.4% of the whole population, and if you subtract children and teenagers, it's 8% of the adult population. To continue increasing the speed of our vaccination effort, everyone has to play a role. So we are working with the companies to ramp up production and address bottlenecks in the supply. We are ensuring speedy availability of new production plants in Europe. A good example is recently BioNTech starting the new plants in Austria and in Germany, Marburg. This gave a little dip in that week, but they have caught up already with the delivery of their vaccines. And the Marburg plant, for example, if full functioning by July, will be able to produce 1 billion doses per year, so that's a real step forward. Currently, 41 industrial sites contribute to the vaccine production here in Europe, but many more could join the effort. So we are strongly encouraging cooperation between industrial actors. We are also addressing the bottlenecks in supply chains. That goes from active ingredients to specialized filters, and of course the fill and finish capacity. We are on these issues also in discussions with the United States, as they are an important actor on many of these just mentioned issues. And let us also stay focused on vaccination in partner countries, the international dimension. The European Union has announced a doubling of its support to COVAX to €1 billion. If we take the whole of Team Europe, then Team Europe contributed €2.2 billion to COVAX. But in parallel, as we know that a vaccine in kind is desperately needed, Member States should make use of the vaccine sharing mechanism we have proposed last week to organize potential donations of vaccines to our partners. A brief look on the variants. It's our task to detect and tackle as soon as possible, as fast as possible, variants. That's the reason why we launched last week the HERA incubator, to build up our response to variants to stay ahead of the curve. What we need to do is support the rapid detection of new variants through cooperation with Member States, notably by increasing the sequencing. For that, the European Commission is providing €200 million to the legal framework that ECDC is offering to allow Member States within this legal framework to contract for sequencing, because we have to detect on a regular basis how the virus is spreading and whether the variants are spreading and how they are developing. Support of vaccine research is important and development. So having established a kind of library on the changes of the virus, we also need constantly to fuel the research on adapting the vaccines to the potential changes of the virus. We did start an EU-wide clinical trial network because if you develop updated vaccines, you need, of course, the clinical trial to test them. And we need the amendment of the regulation procedures to accelerate the approval of modified Covid-19 vaccines. And finally, to achieve all this, we need the engagement of the pharmaceutical industry to boost their capacity. I am glad to say that leaders confirmed their strong support for the HERA incubator today, so we can get down to work now. On the vaccine certificates, indeed, we discussed this topic. As you know, there are still a number of open questions, political questions. The first one is, of course, what these certificates will be used for. But there are also scientific questions that are still open. It's still unclear whether you can transmit the disease, even if you're vaccinated. Although that is a concern that will wane as the vaccination rate increases. We have promising data from Israel, where the BioNTech Pfizer vaccines showed that when you're fully vaccinated with a double shot, you're no more transmitting the disease. So finally, the decision on what you are able to do potentially with such a vaccination certificate is to be decided particularly within each country. But at the EU level, I believe we should use them to ensure the functioning of the single market. And the good news is we do not start from scratch. At the end of January, the Member States, with the support of the Commission, agreed what kind of data are needed for such a vaccination certificate for medical purposes. So very simple, it's a uniform content, which kind of vaccines has been used. It's a unique identifier like an IBAN code and a minimum data set that is necessary for each certificate. Now the Member States need to implement that in their healthcare systems and their border systems to make sure that their healthcare system is fit for purpose. And we offer from the Commission side to coordinate on the standards like we've done with the tracing app, and to create a gateway that connects the different national solutions with each other so that this information is interoperable over time. This takes a while, so this takes at least around 3 months. That is important so that expectations are not too early, too high. And it is very important that this system is neutral to political choices. So you can pass the information this person has been vaccinated. You can also pass the information this person has a negative PCR test. Or, for example, this person has overcome COVID and is immune. So it's neutral towards the information. It's just a technical work that has to be done now. Member States will need to move fast with the implementation if we want such a green certificate to be in place by summer. Beyond agreeing on the principles and the technology, they will have to ensure a quick and complete rollout in their national health system and in their border systems. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam President. May I kindly ask you to switch on your cameras? We've had a lot of requests, so we won't be able to take all of your questions, but we're going to start with Mark Peperkorn first from the Volkskrant. Mark, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Thanks for the question. There's one question actually I have. It's about an export ban of vaccines. I'm told that several heads of state have actually pointed to the fact that the UK and the US have an export ban of vaccines, and at the same time about 1/3 of the vaccines produced in Europe is exported. So I would like to know, did the heads of state ask you to organize actually such an export ban for companies who do not deliver on their contractual obligations? Thanks.
Nous avons eu en effet le débat sur la question des chaînes d'approvisionnement et sur la question des exportations également. Vous connaissez la mesure qui a été mise en place par la Commission afin de garantir de la transparence sur la question des vaccins. Et vous savez aussi que dans un vaccin, il y a autour de 400 produits qui composent le vaccin en question. C'est pour ça qu'il est très important d'avoir la photographie la plus juste possible, la plus précise possible des chaînes de production pour garantir que dans les semaines qui viennent, nous pouvons réussir à augmenter les volumes de production. Et ce qui ressort principalement des débats, même s'il peut y avoir des opinions et des sentiments nuancés sur le sujet, c'est qu'il doit trouver le juste équilibre pour, d'une part, garantir que l'on ait de la transparence autant qu'il est possible sur les chaînes d'approvisionnement et faire en sorte que l'on puisse réussir à augmenter les volumes de production et donc les volumes de vaccins qui pourront être délivrés en Europe également. Et dans le même temps, nous voulons rester dans un dialogue étroit avec tous nos partenaires, spécialement les États-Unis, qui jouent aussi un rôle important sur ce sujet-là, afin d'éviter de mettre en danger les chaînes d'approvisionnement, ce qui est un élément clé, stratégique pour les prochaines semaines et pour les prochains mois, pour réussir à atteindre cet objectif d'accroissement substantiel du volume de production et donc de la capacité de délivrer aux États membres les vaccins dont ils ont besoin le plus vite possible pour mettre en place ces campagnes de vaccination.
Yes, indeed, the United States have an executive order which is kind of an export ban, and a similar system is in place in the UK. We chose a different approach, the export authorization mechanism, because we wanted transparency. So we want to see who is exporting where, and I was very clear from the very start on that is not directed against any kind of country, but it is focused on the question, does the company that is exporting vaccines that are being produced in Europe honor their contract with the European Union? Now, if we look at the pattern, we see that the vast majority of exports is done by BioNTech Pfizer, 95% approximately, and the rest basically by Moderna. Both of them are honoring their contract, so that is fine with us. We are in discussions, as you know, with AstraZeneca, where there's room for improvement what the fulfillment of the contract is concerned. So here we have a very close eye on what's going on.
Thank you. Turning now to Griselda Pastor.
Merci beaucoup. C'est Griselda Pastor de la radio espagnole SER. Ma question, c'est sur le certificat. Tant qu'il n'y a pas de vaccin, pas de certificat, il n'y a pas de voyage touristique, c'est un grave problème pour le pays du Sud, comme vous savez. Est-ce que j'ai bien compris qu'en 3 mois, le certificat de vaccination pouvait être une réalité? Est-ce que c'est un engagement qui sort de la réunion d'aujourd'hui? Et est-ce que ça veut dire que vous comptez que le tourisme pourra être rétabli pour le prochain été? Et si vous pouvez aussi dire quelle a été la profondeur de débat aujourd'hui sur l'utilisation, l'usage de ces certificats, à part traverser les frontières. Merci beaucoup.
Nous avons en effet aujourd'hui de nouveau beaucoup débattu de la question du certificat. Et mon impression, après cette réunion de plusieurs heures sur ce thème-là, c'est qu'il y a un pas en avant dans la direction d'une plus grande convergence sur le sujet par rapport à notre réunion du mois de janvier. Ça ne veut pas dire que tout est réglé. Il y a encore du travail qui est nécessaire, mais je pense qu'on a pu aujourd'hui clarifier un certain nombre de malentendus qui peut-être existaient entre les États membres sur le sujet. Et donc ce que je retiens, moi, de cette réunion, c'est d'une part que nous avons décidé de donner un mandat à nos ambassadeurs au niveau du Coreper pour identifier chacune des questions, je vais donner quelques exemples, qui doivent être tranchées politiquement. Un mandat pour progresser aussi encore sur le plan technique et de veiller à ce qu'il y ait un certificat qui puisse être interopérable entre les États membres. Quelle est ma compréhension de ce sujet-là? Il me semble que l'on devrait tenter de mettre en place une approche européenne commune pour qu'il y ait une information partagée et validée sur certains points. Sur la question du vaccin qui a été administré, mais un tel certificat pourrait aussi contenir d'autres éléments d'information qui peuvent être utiles pour donner une indication sur une supposition d'immunité pour la personne qui porte un tel certificat. Exemple, est-ce qu'un test PCR et à quel moment a été réalisé? Et d'autres types d'informations pourraient être concernées pour aider à faire en sorte qu'à un moment donné, on puisse utiliser ce type de document. Mais je note qu'il y a aussi autour de la table des préoccupations qui sont exprimées, notamment, et c'est une préoccupation très légitime, sur la question du risque de discrimination. S'il pouvait y avoir des droits supplémentaires, des droits additionnels accordés à des personnes qui ont été vaccinées et que d'autres n'aient pas accès aux mêmes droits, ça met évidemment un débat en évidence qui doit être pris en considération. J'ai vraiment l'espoir que d'ici le mois de mars et notre prochaine réunion à la fin du mois de mars au niveau du Conseil européen, on puisse continuer à progresser par rapport à cela. Et je note aussi que la question du moment de l'entrée en vigueur éventuelle d'un tel certificat et de l'objectif pourquoi peut-il être utilisé est un des points pour lesquels il y a différentes idées qui ont été exprimées, pour lesquelles on doit continuer à débattre, continuer à progresser, continuer à converger. Enfin, un mot. Je crois vraiment qu'il est important de développer une approche européenne, parce que je suis totalement convaincu que si on ne réussit pas à développer une approche européenne, il y aura des initiatives individuelles, bilatérales, qui mettront encore plus de difficultés, pour laquelle je suis vraiment très engagé avec la présidente de la Commission pour encourager la Commission et les États membres à continuer à rapprocher leur point de vue sur ce sujet-là. Et nous prenons en considération, bien sûr, le fait que pour beaucoup de pays européens, la question du tourisme est une question extrêmement important sur le plan économique et donc sur le plan social.
Yes, this is a point where I could take up another thought. Indeed, as you said, Charles, it is important to have a European solution because otherwise others will go into this vacuum. As we know, Google and Apple are already offering solutions to the WHO. And these are sensitive informations, so we want to be very clear here that we offer a European solution. Gisela, the time frame, the 3 months, is regarding the technical development. So we do need at least 3 months for the technical development of an interoperable system on the European level. There's lots of work to do for the Commission on the European level and lots of work to do technically for the Member States on the national level. We have agreed on the data set. That's important. So this work is done. It's a minimum data set. the sensitive health data stay in the member states. It's just a question, is the person vaccinated? Or has the person a negative PCR test or antibodies because recovered from COVID as examples? So very simple information that is relevant cross-border for the respective member states. And now, indeed, on a completely different sheet of paper is the question, what are you allowed to do with it? I think it is very important to keep always a balanced option open for everybody. So you need, as long as you do not have access to the vaccines, of course, the option to have a PCR test or rapid antigen tests or other solutions that allow you to access the options that the certificate may give you. But I think, too, that it was a move forward today on converging on this topic.
Thank you. Turning now to Nikos Chrysolaris from Bloomberg. Nikos.
Yes. Hi. Madam President, I understand that you shared some figures with the leaders on expected vaccine deliveries in the second quarter and specifically also on the third quarter, which I don't think they're public. Would you mind sharing them with us as well, and also reassuring us whether vaccine supplies in the third quarter are sufficient to achieve the target of the 70% of the population by the end of summer, or even earlier if supply is sufficient?
Should I start?
Yes,
yeah.
Of course.
Okay. First of all, of course, the slides can be shared. It is a projection of confirmed deliveries from companies where we do have already the schedule, then deliveries pending confirmation, and planned deliveries of vaccines that at the moment have not been approved, like Johnson & Johnson or CureVac, for example. So this is no problem. And yes, we are confident that we are able to reach our goal that at the end of the summer, we will have offered to 70% of the population the vaccination, the adult population. These are 255 million people in the European Union, and if we look at the planned figures, this is a goal that we're confident we'll reach.
Thank you. We're going to take a question from Maria Psara as well. Maria?
I hope you can hear me.
We can, yes.
Hello, Maria Psara from Open TV Greece. A question about the scale up of the vaccine production in the EU. Did you discuss the release of the copyright of the vaccines, the patents? Is it one of the options that you could discuss or see in the future? Thank you.
Ce point a en effet été débattu et ce point a été présenté par l'un ou l'autre des leaders autour de la table. La première commission a eu l'occasion de réagir sur ce sujet et probablement elle s'exprimera. Nous devons, je pense, être très très mobilisés pour faire en sorte que les vaccins puissent être disponibles, accessibles partout dans le monde. Bien sûr pour des raisons humanitaires, pour des raisons de dignité, mais aussi parce que c'est notre intérêt mutuel. On l'a bien vu depuis cette dernière année, c'est une crise globale, c'est une pandémie avec une dimension internationale, une dimension globale. Et il est certain qu'on ne sera pas en sécurité si l'ensemble du monde n'est pas en sécurité. C'est aussi simple que cela. Et donc on doit être très mobilisés. Nous sommes dans le cadre du processus COVAX. On a aussi évoqué d'autres moyens pour tenter de soutenir dans les prochains mois nos partenaires, aussi en prenant en considération la hausse de la production et de délivrance de doses en Europe, qui est la condition pour pouvoir réussir à de manière effective montrer notre solidarité. Mais en même temps que l'on travaille avec les secteurs privés pharmaceutiques pour tenter de faire en sorte qu'ils puissent s'adapter à de nouveaux mutants potentiels, on doit aussi prendre en considération dans la réflexion cette dimension-là.
So on the licensing, I am what the voluntary licensing, sharing of licensing is concerned. We see that companies start already working together. For example, of course, you know that BioNTech is working closely with Pfizer, CureVac now working with Bayer, and AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson are working together with Sanofi. Sanofi is offering their capacities to produce either AstraZeneca or Johnson & Johnson. That is the right way to go. I am so clear on limiting it to a voluntary exchange of IP rights, because we will not only have to produce the vaccines we have right now, but we need the whole exclusive scientific knowledge that is in these companies, for example, with the new mRNA vaccines, to be able to adapt these vaccines with the trained personnel rapidly to potential mutants. So the cooperative work with the public-private sector is, in my views, the way to go. This does not limit, for example, ideas that you can also license in that model sites, for example, in Africa, to be better equipped to deliver on-site. But my strong advice is to stay with a voluntary mechanism.
I have one more question for both presidents from Viktor Danec from Czech Radio. Viktor?
Yes, hello. Thank you very much. I will use just one of the questions on Madam President on travel restrictions. Have you heard any commitments from the 6 member states, notably from Germany, or that they will ease the measures on borders, that they will comply more with the advice of the European Commission with the travel restrictions? Thank you.
So we have been discussing these topics. I think it is very important to keep in mind that there are Council recommendations that unanimously the Member States have agreed upon, I think, 3 weeks ago, on how to deal with cross-border topics and how to deal also with the occurrence of variants. I see that there's always a conflict between the health situation and the free movement that has to be solved on a case-by-case basis. But the restrictions have to be proportionate. That is very important. So, for example, if you look at the truck drivers, there was a good reason why we introduced in spring the green lanes. They are crucial to keep the single market open and the flow of goods within the single market. So we strongly recommend to keep these green lanes open. We see that the truck drivers, if you look at the truck driver population and if you look at the testing scenario, they have a very low risk of infection, lower than the general population. So there are reasons why these green lanes are in place and they do work. And I also strongly emphasize that we need solutions for the cross-border workers. We have regions that are dependent that workers can cross the borders. A classical example is Luxembourg, where the healthcare sector would just not function anymore if the cross-border workers from the neighboring countries couldn't commute every day to their workplace in the hospitals in Luxembourg. So what I see is that after the initial difficulties, now it's more differentiated, the restriction of movement. I think the most important part is that the different regions, the different member states speak with each other and stick to the recommendations and then find a solution appropriate to the epidemiological situation.
Thank you, Madam President and Mr. President, for this press conference. May I point out that tomorrow at 8:30 we'll already have a doorstep of the President of the European Council with the Secretary General of NATO, and our session starts at 9. Thank you and see you tomorrow.